Oh yeah, I remember. Um, this time can yet be the greatest time we have ever lived. Things can still change for the better. Things can turn around even when all we see is an end. Because if you look at the span of time, you're looking at a span and you consider this huge amount of time of billions of years that this world has existed. And you think something as small as a human life or even several generations in this long spectrum, in this long line of what has been and what will yet be. You think that something that small means anything in terms of set in stone, in terms of can't be changed. What transpires during our lifetimes can in a second be flipped around on its head. Whatever faults there are, shortcomings, obstacles, challenges, these things can be immediately uprooted if we just have the power of perspective. A lot of times we live with this like bondage of societal expectation about, you're a certain age, you should be this way. You're a certain age, a time in life, you should have these things. You should have a house, you should have a car by now, you should have a wife or a husband, you should have kids. All these uh, limitations, all these stipulations are formed on the basis of what amounts to a teeny human life in the span of the existence's age. So naturally, if we're looking at this teeny amount of time, comparatively speaking, even a century, 80 years, when you look at this teeny amount of time, of course those limitations make sense because you're looking at a small scale. But if we step back and we realize that in the grand scheme of things, our destinies can turn immediately around. Everything is uncertain. But in that uncertainty, there is a critical freedom that should not be lost, a sense of freedom that should not be killed due to societal expectations of ourselves. When it, in terms of what should be done, who we should be at this point, whatever. The perspective of a wider range is that freedom. Knowing that in the grand scheme of things, and if we talk from a place of faith, in the perspective of God or in a divine perspective, this can yet be our time. There's nothing to say except society, and society comes and goes. There's nothing to say that we cannot still do what we were born to do. That we cannot. There's nothing to say that it's too late, is what I'm trying to say. It's never too late. Because if you consider the span of possibilities that have occurred under the sun, In the centuries laid upon centuries of time, we got nothing but time. If we keep that perspective, we become free. And being free, realizing our freedom, we allow ourselves to reach our potential. If we don't realize that initial freedom and we constrain ourselves, we lose that potential for no good reason. I'm 25. I should have a house by now. I should have a wife by now. I'm 30. Who's measuring this teeny scale? You could be 60 and first get married. Who cares? None of this matters. These are petty things. These are secondary things. You are, in this grand scale, as good as just being born. You are as good as just being born. Because between the human age of 0 and the human age of 80, nothing.